Hello everyone, Kalive here, and welcome back to Enshrouded in 2025. So, we left off with defeating the dragon. We did some endgame grinding, what used to be the endgame. And now we have a whole new place to explore. We have water now, so this is the Wake of the Water update. And with that came more changes. So, we have lots of changes to look at. And what I'm going to do in this episode is just go through some of the early game changes so people that are just starting off a new game, they at least know how to get started. And then after that, then we'll go through and do the final zone or the current final zone until there's a new update. All right, so let's hop into the changes. All right, so up first is going to be the changes to characters. And the biggest change for that is going to be that the level cap is now 45. So previously it was 35. It also means that the base item level, which is going to be 45, could possibly go up to 50. And just like how this item was base level 35, which was the previous highest you can get, because it was legendary, it was able to go up to 40. And now with the base level of 45 being the max, we can get up to potentially 50 with that good legendary weapon. And besides level cap, some of the bigger changes are going to be how mana and stamina and even health regen. So those have all been reworked, the overall regeneration for each one of those. So the base level is lower, but you can get weapons and items that boost it up. However, it will be noticeable if you're using the same gear that you previously used. You definitely see a difference that it'll be slower to recover. Alright, so now let's take a look at the skill tree. So they have added more skills into the game. And this is to compensate for the additional points you get from the increased level cap. So we'll just quickly go over some of the new things that have been added into the tree. And the first new addition we're going to look at is going to be Fisherman's Resolve. It's in the middle of the tree. And it just pretty much makes fishing a little bit easier by increasing your fishing endurance. This is probably something you're going to need later on, but not early in the game because it is pretty easy to fish early on. And the next thing I want to look at is going to be in the dexterity side. And this is going to be the ability to kick. So typically you see something like this in the melee tree, but this has been added to the range side. So you now have an ability to fill up a stun bar if somebody gets in the melee with you. And even though it doesn't say it here, in the patch notes it does say that it does interrupt enemy spellcasting, which is pretty interesting. And next, if we look at the Beastmaster tree, we can see that there is a new skill called Exposed Weakness. And this one essentially just gives the daggers more damage when they do crit, so it should work well with the playstyle for daggers. If we look towards the red strength side, they actually did change up the athlete tree. So there's a new ability called Slapdash, and it's mostly for moving around and swimming, because if you plan on being in the water quite a bit, this could be very helpful. And with this update, they also changed how water affects stamina, so they introduced things like Wet Dog. So when you're wet, or you have a wet debuff or a soaked debuff, you lose your stamina. So this is one way you can reduce the effects of that debuff. And if you combine them both, then I think you just get a 10% reduction instead of a 30% reduction in stamina. So another strength skill that's been added is the Upwards Slash Attack. And this particular ability is helpful for melee to attack flying enemies. So it adds a little bit of height to your jump, and it allows you to attack above you. And next is one of the skills that looks the most interesting to me, and it is Whirlwind Crescendo. And when you do a chain attack with a two-handed weapon, it will end off with a spin attack at the end, which deals damage to everything around you. And this does seem to work well with the new weapon that they've added, which is the Great Sword. So you can get a Great Sword early on in the game, even at the earlier levels. I've seen it drop in the very first elixir well that you clear. And so if we look at the warrior tree, we see this ability called Titan's Edge. And this one specifically targets the great sword and increases its damage. And then over in the magic tree, there is going to be a few things that have been added. And one big thing they've added is going to be resistances. And here's one example of that resistance. It's going to be for Shroud. At the end of this branch, you actually get a skill, so that further boosts up your Shroud resistances. One of the things this game was lacking was resistances like this. So you might want to focus on these if you're going into magic, or even if you're doing some tanking. And all these will stack, so you will get the additive bonuses from each one of them. and they will also stack with the gear that you have. So we do have shroud resistances, we also have ice resistances, there's fire resistance as well, and shock resistance is here, and I believe poison resistance is in the dexterity side of things, and all those will reduce the specific magic damage by a certain amount. And besides the resistances, in the magic tree we also have some new things for healers. So there's going to be 2 new skills. One of those is going to be Righteous Fire, which when you heal a target will actually deal damage to the nearby targets of the person you're healing. And it is specifically for fell enemies, so that won't apply to everything. And another skill that's been added is the ability to critically heal with a healing spell. So this wasn't the case before, it was just a flat amount of healing, and now you have the ability to add that critical healing to those. Alright, so that's going to be it for the character updates. So next let's go and talk with some NPCs, and we're going to learn a little bit about fishing and a couple of other changes to different recipes. So here we are at the Hunter, and with this update we do get access to fishing. And there are a couple of fishing poles you get early on. You get a simple one, and then you get this improved fishing rod. And so besides the fishing poles, you will need to have some bait, and you will also need to have some water. So all 3 of those things will get you the ability to fish. Even if the amount of water you have is very small, it'll still produce fish. And if you go to your own personal crafting, there is a fishing rod that you can craft yourself. There's also some bait you can craft, but this is only after you do the first quest. And if you look at the fishing rod, you can see the different stats that benefit when you are fishing. So there is fishing strength and there is fishing endurance. And fishing strength just affects the fish you can catch at specific locations, and fishing endurance affects the minigame that you play when you are fishing. So once you unlock the Hunter, you're going to get a quest to do fishing right away. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where to go to complete that quest and how to complete it. So make sure you have your fishing rod, and we are going to need some bait as well. So if you don't have access to this particular bait, there is a bait that you can get before that as a part of the quest, which is going to be fireflies. So you can go out at nighttime and capture the firefly. You definitely get way more fireflies than you did before, and bait is required in order to fish. And all the bait does have a new fishing symbol attached to it, so you should be able to easily see what is bait and what isn't bait. And as you can see, even the moths are considered bait, and you can tell that by the fishing symbol. So once you have your bait, we're going to head on over to the Springlands Spire, so I'll see you over there. Alright, here we are at the Springlands Ancient Spire. And if you look out towards the east, which is going to be facing the Vault of the Hunter, there's going to be a little pond, which is right about here on the map. And this pond is going to have water, and you'll be able to fish there. So let's go to the other side, and then we actually can see the water from up here. So visibility of water is going to be pretty far away. And it is that little small pond right there. And chances are, if you did unlock the Hunter already, which it gives you the first quest for fishing, you probably would have saw this already, because it's right in front of that vault. Alright, let's go down there and let's check it out. Alright, here it is. And yeah, there's probably like 7 or 8 different ponds in the Springlands area. So they are pretty common, and this is one of the earlier ones with the lowest level enemies around it. So it should be pretty safe to come here very early on. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'll clear this place out before I start fishing because I don't want to get interrupted. Alright, so it should be safe now. Enemies will wander and they will attack you while you're fishing. So you do want to be careful with that. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is throw on our fishing rod. Here we go. There's the tutorial that you can follow as well. But before you throw out your fishing line, you are able to select which bait you want to use by holding down the right mouse button. This is pretty much the same interface that you have with the bow by selecting different arrows. So we'll start off with the fireflies. That's all you should need for this area. And be sure to look around too, because there might be some disturbed water. That does indicate that they could have some better fish in this pond. And now all you have to do is hold down the left mouse button and then release it to toss out your line. Alright, so while your line is out there, you're going to see these fish pop up. They're going to circle, they're going to jump. But don't do anything until you actually see the button pop up that you need to click. And this might take a minute. Oh, there we go. Just press the button. And then a little minigame pops up when you do catch it. So what you need to do is hit A and D to go left or right. And really you just want to go the opposite direction that the fish goes. And so if you don't do anything, it's just going to burn your stamina bar instead of the fish's. And the goal is to just burn the fish's stamina bar down, which is the red one. And at the end, you're going to be prompted to click the left mouse button again, and that will bring the fish in. And there it is. There's the fish that we caught, a lake hopper. And it is common, so that means you can probably get legendary fish or bigger fish later on. And there is a fisherman or a captain NPC that you get later on, and you can make mounts for your fish. So you can put little fishing plaques all over your base if you wanted to. But that is in the end game zone, so it's going to take a little while to get there if you're just starting off. Alright, so let's just fish one more time, and I'll just walk through what I'm pressing. So first you're going to hold down the left mouse button and release it to cast. Then you have to wait for the fish to bite. So you don't have to press anything at this point in time. And when the fish bites, you're going to be asked to press the left mouse button again. So the fish went to the right, so I pressed the A key. And when the fish goes to the left, I press the D key. So I'm holding down A, now I'm pressing D and holding down D, then back to A, and then back to D. I'm not being that fast right now, but you definitely want to be faster with the better fish in the later zones, or else you're going to burn your stamina bar much quicker. And there we go. That's pretty much it for fishing, so hopefully this helped you out if you weren't quite sure what to do. And before we go, let's talk about swimming. Swimming is pretty simple and straightforward, but it does have like a little bit of a catch in that. So we jump from a high area, it will automatically dive underwater. And you can see when you're underwater, there is an oxygen bar. And there is ways to improve the oxygen bar, mostly with consumables, but there actually is gear for it too. And also you can see that there are new plants they've added into the game for underwater. And some of these you can grow. And so when you go out and create your own lakes and rivers, you can actually grow plants down there as well. And when you're out swimming, you also can speed up by holding down shift to sprint in the water, and it does burn your stamina. And remember that when you're wet, it does reduce the amount of stamina you have. And when you're on the surface, your stamina bar will regenerate automatically. And so if you're just sitting on the surface, you can press the C key, and that will allow your character to dive underwater. And then the space bar will take you back up to the surface. And then you can dive back underwater, and you can also swim faster underwater as well by holding down shift. So yeah, that's how you move in water. So up next, what I'm going to do is go back to the base, and let's talk about how to build with water. Alright, here we are back at the base, and what we're going to do now is go over how to create water in your base and build with water. So if you look at the map, it now says that there is a number of water sources that you can have, and that's based on your flame level. So when you start off, you won't have any sources of water, and as you progress, you'll be able to put down as much as you need. So in order to build sources of water, you're going to need at least access to iron. And if we go over to the workbench, we'll be able to see what we have available to us. So they added a new section called Water Utilities, and we do have some options here. This is the endgame one, and it requires resources from the Veilwater Basin. Yeah, so you have things like shell limestone, and it also requires iron dust, which is from the mill, which is also from the new zone. This one's a little bit easier to make. This is probably the one you're going to make early on. And this is the first water dispenser. As you can see, it only requires 4 iron bars. That's going to be the one that we're going to make. And there are some other utilities that we can look at. So there are these drains, and these pretty much will just drain water from specific areas. So if you're trying to build a waterfall and have it pool into a small little spot, this is a good thing to have. Otherwise, when the water comes down from the waterfall, it's going to fill up whatever's below it. So yeah, you have 2 options. You have the floor drain, and then you also have the wall drain that goes along the walls. But yeah, back to the water dispenser. Let's go look at this. Let's go make this. So you're going to place it in the world just like you do anything else. So you want to put it on your hotbar. And this is about as big as it is, so it's not too big. So you can put it on walls, you can put it on the ground. And it's going to be placed in a buildable area. So you have to do it where your base is. Now what I need to do is actually dig a hole. So I'm going to go dig a hole, and then I'll come back when that's done. It might take me a few minutes to do. Alright, so we dug a little hole. So now we can use the water dispenser to fill this thing up. And now we get our water dispenser, and we can put it against the wall here. And like the name applies, it is going to dispense water. So just a note that the water will fill up to just below the bottom of the water dispenser. So depending on where you place it, it's going to fill up to that spot. So if you want this thing to be filled to the top, you're going to have to put it above the actual hole. So you could technically make a little rocky spot where the water comes out of if you wanted to. Yeah, I'm just going to put a little block up here. All right, there we go. And now it's spilling out water, and it is an infinite water source and doesn't require anything like a well to use. It just keeps flowing out. And then eventually it will fill up the hole. And since it is above the hole, it's going to actually spill out over to the sides. Sometimes the water does weird stuff. So if you have to like reset it, you can jump in. That does seem to like reset the physics of the water, and it kind of settles it down. But there we go. We have a nice pond. Just make sure you have like easy ways to get out of the water if you do make a big pond. And yeah, it is full now. And you can see that it's kind of spilling over to the sides. So we want to pick this thing up now. All right, we got it picked up. You also want to put it in a spot where you can actually grab it. And so the water did spill out and it did go everywhere. So the ground's kind of saturated now. And if there's no water source, the water does stay here for quite a while. So if you do want to get rid of the water, there is an ability to do that. You have to go to your flame altar, and at the flame altar there is the option to remove all water. And it does warn you that it's going to remove every piece of water in this area. So if you have multiple ponds, all those ponds will be drained. But it is a quick way to remove water. And you can still use the drains in order to remove specific areas of water. So if you want to target specific ponds and stuff like that, or have like large flows of water, you could do that as well. It's definitely worth learning this because in the end game, there is a requirement to use water for the mills. So I'd highly recommend experimenting and seeing how the water flows and getting used to creating water sources and stuff like that once you have access to them. So as far as limitations go, what I've noticed is that once the water hits a border for your base, it will actually disappear and it will not continue on. So it is definitely confined to just your base. And there also is a limitation on how far the water will travel. So the water won't go past a certain distance on flat land. And once again, this is a man-made lake, so we can actually do things like fish in it. So you are able to fish in the safety of your own base. And there we go, caught a fish. So we are able to catch fish here. And that's pretty much it for the water here, at least at this point in time. There is possibility to build underwater. There are some different doors and gates that will block off water and let you pass through. But I will get to that more in a later episode once we have access to those items. Because once again, it will require the mill in order to craft these things. Alright, so before we wrap up, I do want to go over some of the brand new quests that have been added to the game in this patch. And it's particularly the ones that are geared towards lower level players. So a few new quests have been added. One of them is for the Pike's Mead area. So this quest is geared for level 15 players. So one of the new ones from Elio is Lost Plushy. So what I'm going to do now is go and take care of this quest so that new players know where to go if they are running into problems. Alright, here we are in front of Pike's Mead. I built this base here a very long time ago, and it still comes in handy every once in a while. I just haven't done this quest yet, so I'm going to have to figure out where to go. But the marker does narrow down to a specific area, and that shouldn't be too hard to figure out. And at the minimum, I would say level 13 is probably safe to be here. So if you're below level 13, it's probably going to be pretty rough to get through here. We got close enough. Now it's showing that it's below us. So should be able to find some kind of stairwell that goes down there or a big hole in the ground. Oh, there we go. So there is a stairwell in this little house. I'm pretty sure this is where we need to go. So for our reference, we are right over here. So there's a tower right here. All right, so let's go confirm that's actually here first. Then I'll come back up and show you some reference points. Oh yeah, this has to be it. Okay, yeah, this is another room right here. So this should be it right here. Okay, yeah, it's in fact down here. So that wasn't too difficult. It is like 3 levels down. Yeah, I'm gonna grab these critter parts for the bait. Alright, so let's look at the map. This is where we are right now. So I'm gonna head back up to the top and then I'll show you where it is in reference to the towers and stuff. So there was a hole in the wall too, so there's probably multiple ways to get down here. Alright, so this building's pretty high up as far as the city goes. And if we look at the compass, it is in the southeast corner of the city. It's right next to one of the towers that are on the wall. So you want to look for this building that we're standing on top of. And it should be pretty simple to find. Alright, so let's head back and turn the quest in. Alright, we made it back. So what we're going to do now is turn this quest in. Let's talk to Emily. Yeah, Emily's not a fan of the bugs. But that quest is completed now. So we should be able to craft this thing now, I think. No, it is placeable. Yeah, as far as the other quests go, I think this is the only other one was the fish one, which we did go over earlier. Alright, that should be it for the early game quest. Everything else is probably going to be for the final zone. So it's pretty much the Plushy and then the quest for fishing. And then for the final zone, I'll definitely go over those in the next episode. There's quite a few of them that you get early on. And I believe those all trigger whenever you defeat the dragon in the Albanese Summits, and then upgrade the flame from that. Okay, so we did keep the critter plushie, and it gives a comfort bonus to wellness. So I think that's a new category. Let's go place that down and see if we get more comfort now. Yeah, in here we're at level 87. And it goes up to level 90. Nice. So yeah, wellness is a new category, and we didn't have that before, so now we do now, and it does boost up our comfort level. At this point, you know, you have over an hour and a half of rested time, so that's definitely more than you ever need. Alright, that's going to be it for this episode. So we did go over quite a bit of the new things that have been added. There are some things that I didn't go over, like they did rework some of the chests, and they did add in like new craftable weapons if you've unlocked them in the world. The reason why I didn't go over those is because the weapons are kind of bad. The ones you get in the world are legendary, and the ones you craft are like rare, and they don't have gem slots in them. But yeah, other than that, we did go over everything with the water. So the water is the big thing. Things like fishing and swimming, and then crafting your own water in a base. They've also reworked some of the crafting recipes, so some things do require other ingredients. So I'll go check back with all the NPCs and just see what has changed in those recipes. That's just too much to go over in one video, and it is a bit boring to do. Another thing I didn't go over, but I think it is kind of important, is they did change up how some of the stats work on rings and weapons and gear. It is noticeable, but there are ways around it, and it's kind of hard to show off if we're not fighting that many enemies. So overall, the new patch is definitely one of the better ones. There's tons of new content, tons of new quality of life things, and we'll be diving deeper into those in the next couple episodes. So that's going to be it. I thank you for watching. I appreciate all the support. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.